So I can't really single out one chapter that was more difficult than the other. They were difficult for different reasons.
It seemed Marvin Gaye's family supposedly never spoke to him again after an incident. So, what could Marvin Gaye have done to warrant such cold shoulders?
And that was part of the reason for his whole feeling of being divided amongst himself.
Well, it's said that Marvin was involved in one of the most unspeakable acts a man of his stature shouldn't have been part of. This act allegedly involved Marvin, his wife, and a teenage girl. And let's just say it nearly ruined Marvin Gaye's reputation.
Watching sexual play, for lack of a better perspective?
That would be a voyeur.
A voyeur, okay.
Now, the question is, what exactly happened between the three? Let's find out. Marvin Gaye was one of the most loved singers in the world. He gave us songs like What's Going On?
What's going on? Hey, what's going on? Tell me what's...
And Let's Get It On.
Let's get it on.
People loved his voice, and he made a lot of money from music. But behind the fame, Marvin had many problems at home. His family life was not happy. He argued a lot with his father, and they didn't get along. Marvin also had money problems and personal struggles. These things made his life harder as time went on. One of the most shocking stories was about how he met his second wife, Janis Hunter. She was just 17 years old and still in high school. Marvin, on the other hand, was already 34 years old. Not only that, he was already married to Anna Gordy, the older sister of Motown's founder, Berry Gordy.
First, I must thank God for all of the God-given talent that he gave Marvin.
That's not how most relationships begin, but their story only got wilder from there. Marvin Gaye wasn't the only Marvin in the family. There is also a Marvin Gaye III.
On behalf of the entire Gaye-Gordy family, it brings me a great privilege and a terrific honor to accept this award from my father.
Many people didn't know the real story about who Marvin Gaye III's parents were. Today, we are here to talk about that. This story has been told in two books, one called Divided Soul, The Life of Marvin Gaye by David Ritz, and the other called Trouble Man by Steve Turner. These books give a close look at Marvin's life and tell the real truth about his son's birth.
There's no greater thing than knowing that there were a lot of people in this world that loved my dad almost as much as I did in my...
At the time Marvin Gaye III was born, Marvin was married to a woman named Anna Gordy. Anna was not just anybody. She was the older sister of Berry Gordy, who created Motown. Anna was 17 years older than Marvin. Even though they were married, Anna could not have children. But one day, Anna suddenly said she was pregnant. Many people were confused, but Marvin went along with the story. They told everyone it was their baby. They wanted to look like a perfect family, especially for Motown fans and the media. Years went by and no one questioned the story. Everyone believed that Marvin Gaye III was Anna and Marvin's real son. But then, something changed. When David Ritz interviewed Marvin for his book, Marvin said something surprising. He said that Marvin Gaye III was actually adopted. This shocked a lot of people. Some reports say that even Marvin Gaye III didn't know the truth until the book came out after Marvin's death in 1984.
Soul singer Marvin Gaye, whose career spanned over 25 years, including the birth of the Motown sound to the 80s, was shot to death yesterday in Los Angeles.
When David Ritz asked Marvin who the real parents were, Marvin refused to say. He kept that part secret. But the other biographer, Steve Turner, didn't stop there. He found out the truth. He found the real mother and confirmed it. The real mother of Marvin Gaye III is a woman named Denise Gordy. Denise was very close to Marvin and Anna. She was Anna's niece by blood and Marvin's niece by marriage. That also means she was Berry Gordy's niece, so this was all happening inside the same family. When the baby was born, Marvin was 26 years old and Denise was only 15. This raised a lot of serious questions. It looked like Marvin had done something very wrong. If people knew at the time, he could have gone to jail for what's called statutory rape, when an adult has sex with someone too young.
And that was part of the reason for his whole feeling of being divided amongst himself.
The pregnancy was kept quiet for years. Everyone in the family seemed to agree on it. Anna wanted a child but couldn't have one. Marvin wanted a child of his own. Denise, still a young girl, just wanted to help. She said it herself in an interview. She said, "My aunt was unable to have children, and I had one for her. It was as simple as that." But was it really that simple? Even if everyone agreed and no one forced her, many people today still find it very upsetting. Marvin was a grown man, and Denise was just a teenager. Some say it doesn't matter if the family approved. It was still wrong. Later on, Marvin met Janis. Janis was only 17 when Ed brought her to the recording studio. Marvin was there, working on his music. The moment Janis saw him, she felt something.
And by the time I met Marvin, I had just turned 17.
Puppy love to the 15th power at 16 years old, right?
Well, to the, 17th power.
She later said his voice made her pain go away. She felt like she had finally found someone who could understand her. Marvin also liked her right away. He didn't care that she was still in high school or that she was a teenager. He didn't care that he was already married. He was drawn to her beauty, her youth, and maybe even her sadness. She followed him wherever he went. She thought she was in love. Maybe she was. But she was also too young to understand how dangerous this life could be. Eventually, Marvin's marriage to Anna ended. It was a very bitter and ugly divorce. Marvin had to give Anna money and even some of the rights to his music. He later said that the album, Here My Dear, was written about their marriage and divorce.
I guess I'll have to say this album is dedicated to you.
The alimony payments were just too expensive for Gaye to keep paying. Allegedly owing $600,000 to his ex-wife and unable to pay back taxes, the legendary crooner filed for bankruptcy, and his financial decline quickly escalated after that.
And I was really broke, and things didn't look too good, so I was stuck in this forest, and I couldn't see. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you, I owed the government $4 million too, so that's enough to leave the country, you know what I mean?
He agreed to pay Anna the money he owed, with the settlement stipulating that the first $307,000 would be an advance payment coming from the royalties from the next album he'd release. The remaining $293,000 would come from subsequent royalties off future albums. After his marriage ended, Marvin and Janis stayed together and they got married. But even marriage didn't bring peace. Their relationship was full of fights, jealousy, cheating, and more drug use. Janis later said that Marvin could be cruel to her. He would hurt her with his words and sometimes even with his hands.
So I can't really single out one chapter that was more difficult than the other. They were difficult for different reasons.
Janis worked with author David Ritz to write a book about her life with Marvin. The book was called After the Dance. In it, she told everything: how they met, how they loved each other, and how much pain she suffered. She said that Marvin had a dark side. He had deep problems that made him hard to live with. He used drugs more and more. He also liked to play mind games. One time, he even made Janis wear makeup to look like an older woman because he said he felt guilty about her young age. Not long after Janis met Marvin Gaye, she started spending time at his one-bedroom apartment. The place wasn't anything fancy. It had just a couch and a man named Abe who was always there. Abe was a junkie and lived on the couch. Marvin called Abe his assistant, but it was clear that Abe had problems. Janis, being young and excited to be with a star, didn't see the red flags. She thought it was special to be with someone as famous as Marvin Gaye. But grown women might have seen something was wrong. Marvin was sleeping with Janis often. She believed they were in love. But Marvin had other plans. He wanted to get her pregnant. Janis didn't try to stop it either. She was only 18 and thought this was a real relationship. She didn't understand how serious the situation was. She thought love was enough. But she soon saw that Marvin was acting jealous and trying to control her life. He even told her to quit high school.
You were 17 at the time when you guys
Yes.
linked up. How old was Marvin?
He was 33.
Wow, okay.
Marvin said they could be together all day, every day. He told Janis he would teach her everything she needed to know. He promised to be more patient than any teacher. But his reasons were not pure. He didn't just want to help her, he wanted full control. And that's not love. He didn't like the fact that boys her age were around her. One day, he even told Janis, "I don't want to share you. There are all those strong high school football players looking to love on you. They're my competition." Janis thought he was joking at first, but she soon learned he was serious. He didn't want her talking to other boys or even looking at them. That kind of jealousy made Janis feel trapped. As the relationship went on, Janis started to see more of Marvin's dark side. She realized he seemed to enjoy when people close to him were sad or upset. He would do things just to cause emotional pain, then sit back and watch how people reacted. One day, he picked her up from school and said he needed to make a stop. Janis didn't think much of it until they pulled up to a house. Marvin told her to wait in the car. Then he went inside. Janis soon learned that this was the house of Marvin's wife, Anna Gordy. Janis was scared. She was just a teenage girl, and now she was sitting outside another woman's house, the woman who was still married to Marvin. Anna came outside to see who was in the car. She walked right up to the window and told Janis to roll it down. Janis barely cracked it open. She was terrified. Anna looked at her and said, "I just want to see what someone like you looks like." Then she turned to Marvin and said, "Now that I've seen it, don't ever bring it back here again." It was a moment that stuck with Janis. She wasn't just a secret girlfriend anymore. She was now a young girl caught in a mess with a married man and his wife. Not long after that, Janis got pregnant. Marvin seemed happy and excited, but only because he believed it would be a boy. He always talked about having a son. Janis tried to tell him that it might be a girl, but he ignored her. Sadly, she had a miscarriage. She was heartbroken. Instead of comforting her, Marvin just said, "Next time, God will bless us with a healthy boy." It was like he didn't care about her feelings. It was all about having the son he wanted. When Janis turned 18, her life changed again. She gave birth to Marvin's child, a daughter named Nona, in 1974. Marvin was still married to Anna when this happened. Janis felt so ashamed about not giving him a son that she actually apologized. That shows just how much control Marvin had over her. He made her feel guilty for something she had no control over. Even worse, Marvin started making cruel comments about her body. After having a baby, Janis had stretch marks. Marvin pointed them out and said, "Surely there's a way to get rid of those things." Janis was still just a teenager, trying to be a good mom, and he made her feel ugly. But Marvin didn't stop there. The very next year, Janis got pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to a son named Frankie. Marvin finally had the boy he wanted. He acted like things were perfect now. But life with Marvin was never calm. Their home was full of drugs, music, and strange visitors. Famous musicians like George Clinton and Bernie Worrell would come over to play basketball and do drugs with Marvin. Sometimes they would go to Ike Turner's studio, where Ike was known for carrying a suitcase full of cocaine. At home, Marvin would write music while he and Janis stayed high on pot and cocaine. It was a wild and unhealthy life, especially for a young mother. One night, Janis experienced something even worse. In her book, she talked about how Marvin once asked her to sleep with another couple. Janis was about 19 or 20 years old at the time. Marvin was in his mid-30s.
It was a time where drugs were not as taboo as they are today.
Right.
And sex definitely was not.
It was at the forefront. It was very open.
It was,
The four of them were smoking and using drugs when Marvin noticed the couple looking at Janis. He told her, "I think they want to take this party to the next phase. A small, intimate orgy is just what the doctor ordered." Marvin didn't join in himself. He just watched and told people what to do. Janis didn't really want to do it, but she went along with it to make Marvin happy.
Watching. Sexual play, for lack of a better perspective.
That would be a voyeur.
A voyeur, okay.
When it was over, Marvin asked her, "You loved it, didn't you?" She told him no. He replied, "Don't deny it. You were an animal in heat. You couldn't get enough. This was your dream come true." Janis said, "Not my dream, Marvin. Yours."
It's taboo as they are today.
Right.
And sex definitely was not.
Was
It
at the forefront.
not-
It was very open.
It was, you can look at any number of films that were done around those times. And
The very next night, the couple came back, hoping to do it again. But this time, Marvin was jealous. He told Janis, "You can go with them if you want. I won't stop you." Janis said no to the couple. She didn't want to do it again. She only did it the first time to please Marvin. But now that she refused, Marvin started playing mind games again. He told her, "To watch purity turn into perversity is a fascinating thing. You were once my angel. Now you have fallen. And yes, I do admit, it is exciting to watch you fall." Janis must have felt so broken inside. She was just a young mother who wanted to be loved, and instead, she was treated like an object. Marvin didn't stop at just hurting Janis with words or actions in private. He kept putting her in uncomfortable and even scary situations, especially when they were around his friends. Sometimes, he would even bring her around people he didn't like just to make her feel uneasy. It felt like he got some kind of enjoyment out of making her uncomfortable. He didn't treat her like a real partner or even like the mother of his children. Instead, he acted like he owned her. He used her to feed his ego and control everything around him. Her life with Marvin wasn't a story about love. It was the painful journey of a young teenage girl who trusted the wrong man. A powerful man who cared only about himself and his own needs. There was one night that showed just how dark things could get. Janis and Marvin were invited by famous comedian Richard Pryor to his home.
If you catch me on the wrong day and ask me my name, you're gonna get trouble.
Hey, what's your name?
Shit. Motherfucker, don't rush me, motherfucker.
He said they would watch bikini dancers perform sexual acts with each other. This made Janis feel very uncomfortable, but she still went because she didn't want to upset Marvin or cause a scene. She often did things she didn't like just to keep the peace. Nights like that were strange and disturbing. Sadly, they weren't even the worst of what she experienced during her time with Marvin. On another night, again with Richard Pryor, things got even more out of control.
And I had to stop drinking though, because I got tired like waking up in my car driving 90.
Richard took too much cocaine and became violent. He hit his own wife in the head with a wine bottle right in front of everyone. Then he began yelling at the guests, calling them horrible names. Janis remembered he called everyone a filthy and insulting word, except for her. Marvin thought it was funny and told Janis she should feel special for not being insulted. But she didn't laugh. She felt scared and trapped, but she stayed quiet. That night showed her what kind of people they were surrounded by. Famous people who used drugs, acted wild, and hurt others, while everyone just stood by and watched. Marvin himself was no better. He pushed her toward men on purpose. One of these men was Frankie Beverly, the lead singer of the band Maze. It seemed like Marvin enjoyed the idea of Janis being with someone else. Sometimes it felt like he wanted to create drama just to feel something, maybe even to make himself jealous on purpose. He noticed that there was some spark between Janis and Frankie. But instead of backing away, Marvin made things worse. He set up situations that would bring them closer together. He went as far as making a sneaky plan. He invited Frankie to town and booked him a hotel room. Then he booked the room right next to it for Janis. He told her he needed to focus on music and that she should stay at the hotel. Janis knew something wasn't right. She could tell Marvin was trying to set her up with Frankie. Even though she felt unsure, she still went. When she and Frankie met at the hotel, it felt weird. They knew Marvin had created the whole situation. To relax, they smoked some marijuana together. They didn't plan anything, but they were clearly put in a strange position by Marvin. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. It was Marvin. He had come there hoping to catch them doing something. But Frankie had already crawled back to his own room by then. Marvin only saw Janis sitting alone. He didn't get what he wanted that night. Still, later on, Janis admitted that she did sleep with Frankie, but only when she chose to, not when Marvin set it up. It was her own decision that time. Marvin had been cruel to Janis for a long time, but she still stayed. After they got married, he said something very cold. He told her he loved her, but wasn't in love with her. That deeply hurt her. Marvin was almost 40 years old by then. He started saying mean things about Janis's body. He pointed out her stretch marks and said her breasts were sagging. He told her he needed excitement, not just love. These words broke Janis inside, but she stayed silent. She pretended everything was fine, even though Marvin was cheating on her often. By the time Janis was only 22, she already felt old and unwanted. She believed she had lost her youth forever. Marvin's words made her feel like she wasn't beautiful anymore. He ruined even their vacations. He would plan a family trip to Hawaii, but fly there alone. Then, he would call Janis and beg her to come with the kids. He repeated this pattern over and over again. It was like he wanted control even when he was far away. Their arguments got more dangerous. One day, Marvin was driving Janis and the kids. He suddenly began swerving the car and yelled that he was going to drive off the road. Janis was terrified. That moment stayed with her. After dealing with so much, she finally started pulling away. Maybe she did it out of pain or anger. But she didn't stop with Frankie Beverly. She also began seeing another man, Teddy Pendergrass, a rising soul singer who was becoming more famous than Marvin.
Tonight I'm in a romantic mood.
Her relationship with Teddy was wild and strong. They did cocaine together and dated openly. They didn't try to hide it. One day, Marvin saw them at a restaurant, sitting together. He didn't go in. He just watched from outside, filled with jealousy and confusion. These affairs pushed Marvin too far. His anger turned into real danger. One day, while high on drugs, Marvin lost control. He yelled at Janis about her cheating. Then he picked up a kitchen knife and held it to her throat. Janis was frozen in fear. She believed it might be the end for her. Marvin shouted that he loved her too much and that his love was killing him inside. He begged her to make him so angry that he could kill them both. Thankfully, he didn't hurt her physically that day. But after that, Janis knew she had to leave. She took the children and left Marvin for good. Even though she had affairs, Janis never acted like she was innocent. She admitted that she slept with other men because she was hurt, angry, and lost. But leaving Marvin didn't mean peace. The next 5 years were still full of fights and pain. Their family was torn apart. Once, Janis brought the kids to visit Marvin in Hawaii. When it was time to leave, Marvin refused to let their son Frankie go with her. She didn't see her son again for over a year. When Janis finally filed for divorce in 1982, life was hard for her too. She had no stable job and sometimes had to sleep on friends' couches with her daughter, Nona. Marvin couldn't afford to pay child support or alimony. At one point, he and his son were even living in an old bakery truck. Still, Janis tried to help. In 1983, she went on tour with Marvin to show support. But the old problems came back. He wrongly accused her of sleeping with his bass player. That was the last straw for Janis. Still, Janis didn't see herself as just a victim. She admitted her own mistakes. She took responsibility for the choices she made while living that fast life, and in time, she forgave herself. One good thing that came out of all this pain was her decision to get clean. She stopped using drugs, The person who helped her do that was Rick James, another famous music star known for wild behavior. But he helped her find a better path.